Erev Tov, Rabotai. As we said, we're doing this week, Parsha Shavua is going to be Lech Lecha. So we're talking about Avraham Avinu. And so I'll tell you something interesting, right? It says in the Zohar Kadosh about Avraham Avinu. It says that he was Ben Nidda. You know what this is? Ben Nidda? You know what I'm talking about? What does this mean? That's something else. We're talking about somebody, it says, right, his mother, the mother, right, who was the wife of Terach. The wife of Terach. When she conceived Abraham, she was Nidda. You understand? So Avraham Avinu was Ben Nidda. This is what it says. So what does this mean, right? Somebody who's a Ben Nidda, today, right, in our times, this is something not so good, right? So what does that mean? That a person, his mother didn't go to the mikveh, and she was having children like this, without mikveh. So he's Ben Nidda, he's the son. This is what it's about, So it says in the Shulchan Aruch, a person, should not marry somebody like this. Better not to. It's allowed, but better not to marry somebody like this. Why? Because since he's Ben Nidda, you know what it says in the Talmud, right? Az panim, if you see a person who's az panim, right, arrogant, he's either mamzer or Ben Nidda, one or the other. Mamzer or Ben Nidda. That's why he has this personality, arrogant, az panim. Az panim legeinam. So what does that mean? If you marry somebody like this, right, who's Ben Nidda, his wife didn't go to the mikveh, you're going to suffer. Why? Because he's going to have azut panim, he doesn't have a good personality, bad character. So you're going to suffer from this guy, He's not going to treat you so good. You're going to have problems with him. So better not to marry somebody like that. It's allowed. If you want to, you could. If you want to take the chance, right? You know what they say, right, about the daughter of Yaakov Avinu, right, the Dinah, that she was, had the power, to marry a man and bring him to do teshuvah, 100%. You know what I mean? She had this power to do this. That's why she married, Eov, right? They say, that she married Eov, and she brought him to do teshuvah, 100%. That's what it says. Interesting, right? Okay. So there are some women, who have the power to do this, They can take the husband, and twist him into teshuvah. They say, by the way, that it's an interesting thing. The main influence, that a person has in his life, to be tzaddik or rasha, who he is? His wife. You know what I mean? If his wife is tzaddiket, he's going to become also tzaddik. She has power to influence him. Hashpa'ah. If his wife is rasha, they say like this, listen to this. If his wife is rasha, even if he's a tzaddik, he's going to become rasha. You hear this? He's going to become rasha. His wife is going to make him into rasha. Because she's rasha. Can you imagine such a thing like this? It's incredible. They say, there's a true story like this brought down. They say there was one guy, he was tzaddik. Married a woman who's rasha, and he became also, he kalkel, he went off the rails, became rasha. It happened, true story. Because he married a bad wife. Like this, Anyway, getting back to what we said, right? It says the Shulchan Aruch, better not to marry somebody like this. Where is this in Even Ezer? Over there it says, don't marry Ben Nidda. So, okay, that's one interesting thing, right? So what does that mean? That if you know that this person is a Ben Nidda. Now, the truth is, right, there's a question like this. If you see a person today who's a Baal Tshuva, right? Is it for sure that he's a Ben Nidda? Or not for sure? Can we assume that he's Ben Nidda, Baal Tshuva? His mother didn't go to the mikveh? So Rav Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva about this, He says something interesting. He says that today, if a girl sees, right, that the boy, or the other way around, right, the boy sees that the girl, they're Baal Tshuva, but they behave well, good character, nice personality. So he says you can marry somebody like that. Why? Because maybe, even though he's Baal Tshuva, maybe his mother was not Nidda when he was conceived. Could be, you never know. How's that? But she didn't go to the mikveh. So listen to what he says. He says maybe Maybe she went to the beach, and went inside the water, and that was the mikvah for her. Could be, you never know. Can you imagine? Something like this. She went inside the water, that was her mikvah, and maybe this guy's not a ben niddah. You never know. So he says, therefore, if you see that this Baal Tshuva has a good character, you can marry them. No problem. That's what he says. Interesting. Interesting story. So that's a very... So it says in the Zohar Kadosh, so something amazing, Look what it says, right? Zohar Kadosh. We said, right, that Zohar Kadosh said that Avraham Avinu, he was ben niddah. So, but it says in Zohar Kadosh, a person like this, right, who's ben niddah, if he's really ben niddah, if he does teshuvah, and becomes ben Torah, chazak, mitchazek, right? He has the power to bring also other people to teshuvah, more than anybody else. Because he's ben niddah, He has more power to bring people to do teshuvah than a regular tzaddik. A Baal Tshuva has more power to do this. You understand what I'm saying? That's why we see, some Rabbanim, that they're Baal Tshuva. In this generation also, There are many Rabbanim like this. They're Baal Tshuva. But they bring more people to do teshuvah than anybody else. You know why? Because they were metaken. They did a tikkun on their neshama. And because of that, they turned around the tumah of the niddah and made it into kedusha. Just the opposite. This is what Avraham Avinu did, right? That's why. Who brought more people to do teshuvah than anybody else? Avraham Avinu. Nobody's brought it more than him. You know what I mean? They say, by the way, about Avraham Avinu, listen to this, It says, right, that he opened Eshel. Avraham Avinu, remember this pasuk? Eshel. What is Eshel? What is that? Yeah. Like a nice little hotel, for bed and breakfast, that kind of thing, right? He used to feed people over there. So, it wasn't just like a cafeteria, they have a buffet, right? You go take the food you like, take this one, take the pasta, right? Take the fish, salmon, take what you like. It wasn't just that. So what was it then, You know what it was? Listen to this. They say, right, in the Midrash, they say that Avraham Avinu, he was personally there, at the site. He was personally there. He wasn't just, telling people, yeah, go serve them, give them some food. No, he was there himself. So what he did was, when he would see somebody coming in, to sit down to eat. Soup kitchen, right. So he wouldn't just, watch them, like this, hi, how are you? Hi, nice to have you today. Not like that. What he would do is, he would tell them, listen, you're coming to eat over here. You have to make bracha, right? Because you have to do netilat yadayim. You got to do hamotzi, right? Brachot, birkat hamazon. You got to do mayim achronim, everything. He was personally watching them, and telling them. So he would tell them, you got to bless. You have to say brachot, to the one who created the world. The creator of the world. He was mekar of them like this, And some of them would, were stubborn, right? I'm kishioref, right? They were stubborn. Some of them were stubborn. So what would they do? They would tell him, listen, I'm atheist. I don't believe in God. I'm I'm one of those left-wing guys, right? You know what I mean, right? Like they have today, right? These right? Liberal. I'm liberal. I don't believe, right? I don't believe in God. What are you talking about? What God? So you know what he would do? He would hear somebody saying like this. He wouldn't say, oh, okay, thanks, I'll see you later, bye-bye. He wasn't like that, Avraham Avinu. He wasn't a character like this. You know what he would do? He would sit with them for 2-3 hours. Convince them, that there is a God, to prove to them. Sit with them, bach, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. He would sit with each person 2-3 hours if he needed to convince him, that there's a God. He invested a lot of time in Kiruv, Avraham Avinu. Nobody did like him. You think, somebody today does like him? Nobody did like Avraham Avinu, Kiruv. Forget about it. He invested hours and hours in each person, to bring them back to do teshuvah. This is the way he was, Avraham Avinu. How did he get the power to do that? So says the Zohar Kadosh, you know why? Because he was ben niddah. Since he was ben niddah and metaken the niddah, he has power to bring everybody to the teshuvah. This is the whole thing. Interesting, right? Okay. Interesting, right? But I'll tell you a couple of things and I'll finish here. Says the Zohar Kadosh something interesting, The question is like this, right? There's also another issue which is brought up there, which is, that we have Parshat Ki Tetzeh, right? We just read it, before Rosh Hashanah, right? What is that talking about? Going out to the war, right? You find over there some, shiksa, some goyish woman. You can take her, be with her, and also you can marry her afterwards. Convert her and marry her also. So it says over there, right, the Gemara, but if you do this, if you convert her and marry her, the child is not going to turn out to be good. It's going to be a chatzuf, chutzpah child. Chatzuf. Bad character. Ben Soreromare, Stubborn and rebellious, right, for as a child. That's what he's going to turn out to be. So why is this, Why does a child turn out to be so bad? What's the reason for that? So says the Kadosh, you know what the reason is? Because when a person converts, to Judaism, all the zohama, the impurity that he had before, he doesn't release all of it. He doesn't release everything. He's still a little bit left over. Some zohama, some filth there is still left. Some tumah is still left there, So because of this, she's not going to have good children, this woman, She's first generation, convert. She's not going to have good children. There's going to be rebellious, stubborn, rebellious child. Who was like this? Which child was like this? Right, Avshalom, right? Avshalom was like this, That's why he rebelled against his father, Marad. He wanted to kill him even. He took his malchut. Everything. Stubborn and rebellious child like this. So, question is, okay, fine, that I understand. By the way, it says in Zohar Kadosh something very deep. You know what it says? If you want to marry a gioret, right? If you want to marry a convert, and you want to have the best possible children, that you can have, so what should you do? Listen to this. It says, right, marry a gioret who was never with any man, never had a husband, or never had a boyfriend. Somebody who was never with a man. She's still, pure enough to give you good children, But if she already was with another man before, before the giur, not going to be so good. That's what it says in Zohar Kadosh. How long does this take, for the zuhama, the impurity to come off, right? The convert, the ger. How long does it take? Listen to this. It says in Zohar Kadosh, it's 3 generations. What does that mean? The grandchild will be already 100% pure. The neched. Understand? That's what it says. We see this, by the way, from the Torah also. What does it say, right? You can take a convert, who's Edomi or Mitzri, but you cannot marry into them until 3 generations. Exactly what it says, right? 3rd generation you can marry. They can marry into the Kahal. Why? Because it takes 3 generations to purify them. Especially Mitzri and Edomi, right? Because they're very impure, They're very tameh, these nations, Shtufei zimah, they're very much into zimah. But here's the thing, right? What about Baal Tshuva, somebody who's ben Nidda? How long does it take for him to lose his tumah? How long does it take? One time I was discussing this with a certain rabbi, he became a dayan now. I heard they made him a dayan. Just recently. Mazal tov, right? To my friend, he became a dayan. So, he was big time chacham. So, one time we were sitting, discussing, he told me, he says, I think, somebody who's ben Nidda, it stays with him all his life. All the generations, until the end. Until Mashiach comes. That's what he told me. I told him, I says, where did you see this, So he's just, saying a svara, he didn't really have a source for this. That's what he thought. Afterwards, after I came to America, I saw in the Zohar, it says not like that. I saw that he was wrong. He was mistaken. You know what it says in the Zohar? Same thing as the ger. It takes 3 generations, So if a person is a ben Nidda, his son will also be, a little bit tameh, and then his neched, his grandson will be already 100% pure. So also, 3rd generation, gets purified. So this is the rule, that a person who's a ben Nidda or a ger, in 3 generations, he's 100% pure. Until then, still some problems there, some, you need to some tikkunim, there, to fix the problems a little bit. It doesn't mean, by the way, they're bad people, chas v'shalom. But they need more tikkun. 3rd generation, 100% tikkun. ברוך ה' לעולם, אמן ואמן. רבי חנן שאומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות ישראל, לפי כך יקריב עליהם תורה ומצוות שנתנו חפץ, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה בידי. אמן. אמן.